Hey, what's up? I'm a diagnosed narcissist, but before I say the things that I'm going to say, keep in mind that I am not a licensed professional. So, with that out of the way, I wanted to talk about addiction because I figured I would have some insight on here that maybe not a lot of people would understand, especially as a narcissist myself. Now, I'm not saying that everybody with an addiction is a narcissist, but I think there is a layer that I do understand quite better than everybody else in terms of how addiction goes about. I mean, I know a lot of people can quite simply say, oh, if you're addicted to something, it's because you have a hole within yourself that you're just trying to fill, like an empty black hole that, you're trying to escape from. And that's essentially why people are, latched onto substances and whatnot. And sure, I don't think a lot of people have a hard time understanding that. But I think as a narcissist, it hits on another level that most people wouldn't actually get, which is why I think it was important to say that, yeah, obviously, not every single person with an addiction is a narcissist or, has a cluster B disorder at that. Let's just say. But when you are in this rut, let's just say, where you're trying to escape because there's just like an empty hole inside of you, then how is it are you supposed to, get away from that? Because I always figured that when I hear people that are like, oh, I'm blah, 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 sober off this, or I haven't done this in like so long, I always thought that perhaps maybe this comes from having a, full identified sense of self. Because when it comes to addiction, I never actually understood what the problem or like what the issue was. I mean, I get the health risks and whatnot, but I mean, I don't know. I guess the only thing I can say is like, oh, YOLO, you only live once. So I guess you do things that are not necessarily good for you, like maybe, drink a lot of alcohol, smoke cigarettes, or, you know, all those kinds of substances that are, yes, I will admit, not very good for your body. But when people always mention this whole, oh, you're just trying to escape from something, you're just trying to like fill like an empty, like blank void. I guess this is where I kind of get like lost in translation because to me, life has always been about escape. Like when I'm here, if I'm not masking a front of like superiority or something, or hell, even when my um, extremely negative feelings disappear and I'm just like trapped in this like really like apathetic state, and I realize that, I can't escape, you know, not being somebody. I know I'm just empty and blank. So I guess this is something that I never really understood whenever people would be like, oh, you're wasting your life if you just keep, let's just say, doing hedonistic things, doing things that are, extremely addictive, like substances. But I always thought, isn't that life in general? Because I see everything and I think to myself, oh, wow, this is, incredibly shallow and doesn't actually, mean anything. So it's either why wouldn't you just strive for pointless pleasure rather than, I don't know, no pleasure whatsoever? I should also point out that I am an Enneagram 7, and I know people in the typology community might already be raising an eyebrow because there is discussion about whether or not you can be a certain MBTI type and have a certain Enneagram type, because I'll admit, I think it is pretty uncommon pairing to be an INTP 7 because most INTPs are, headed down towards a 5. Perhaps that's a separate video that I'll make. If you guys do want to watch that, let me know. I mean, I'll probably make it anyway, but I'm just saying that if there is somebody that eagerly wants to watch that, then yeah, perhaps I will be more motivated to make it, because I would simply just say I'm not a fan of the whole like, oh, you can't be this MBTI type and you can't be this Enneagram type, because I can see why people might make connections and say that, oh, if you're this MBTI type, then there's a higher chance that your problems are more likely associated with like something like this. But I mean, life's a piece of garbage. And if we live long enough, why can't any sort of problem be associated with somebody, So I guess like that's just a brief thing in terms of what I want to say about that. But back to the, original thing that I want to talk about in terms of like the NPD, the, the narcissism in terms of like addiction and stuff. To me, the mindset of an addict is nothing like it's nothing more than what life is, which is something that I find really strange because I think when people say these things, they have all their like hippie jargon about oh, get out there and like do something with your life. There's like so much more, and I'm just like, why would there be so much more? Like we're literally wasting away. Like I don't understand how people are able to lie to themselves like that and think that like, oh yeah, sure, there might be a tomorrow, there might be a day after that, whatever, blah blah blah, and like things like that. But I mean, it's just this is all shallow and it doesn't matter. And even when people point things out to me, let's say where it's like, oh, is a hangover really worth it in the morning? Like, let's say drinking the previous night or like whatever. But I mean, just like, pain never disappears, I guess I would just like, simply say, because that's what life is. We're just staring like, the indifference of the universe in the face, and our fragile, tiny little egos can't handle it. And yeah, I might be projecting, but I'll just say I definitely do believe that humans are just typically, in that way. But I guess because I actually am a diagnosed narcissist and I have the self-loathing and I have the, you know, shame within me that I keep trying to mask with like superiority, and I keep getting lost between am I my superiority, or am I my inferiority, or am I just nothing? I'm probably just nothing because, all of these fragmented pieces of like my, self identity are just, going all over the place. So every single time I get up, and let's say it's from a night of drinking, like sure, I can exaggerate. I can say like, oh yeah, this hangover sucks, let's say. So like why would I even want to continue like doing this? Or it's like, sure, yeah, when I come back to I guess off a high of something, I might think to myself like, yep, the world is still like shallow and hollow. But like the difference that I think I'm just willing to accept compared to like most people is that like I don't see this changing. Like I can be in this state without doing any substances and just be bored, just waiting for death until like I don't know, some form of like distraction comes. Or I can just, fuck it, drink, do something, and ride the highs or the I don't know, like the dopamine of it and like whatnot. But it's like I I don't know. I don't feel like I'm escaping anything, or at least I don't feel like I'm escaping anything in the way that maybe most people would like think about it, because like my axiomatic thing about life is that we already exist at a baseline where we're trying to escape everything. Because if we're not, then sure, why wouldn't we just kill ourselves? This is why I think that like, life is pretty much meaningless, and like most people are, a joke in terms of like their fulfillment or whatever and like whatnot. Because the common argument you hear from people when you talk about like nihilism, let's say, they're like, oh, then if life has no meaning, then why wouldn't you just kill yourself? And I'm just like, I don't get why they would say that, because like, okay, you're still gonna die. You believe your life has meaning, and yet you associate death with meaninglessness, and yet everybody dies. So this is all just meaningless. So I don't know. When I look at joy, when I look at like pleasure, it's like they're all just escapes from an overwhelming, overlasting boredom of nothingness and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I know there are people that are obviously not addicted to anything, but I don't know. I kind of just look at them and they're just like, they're just better at being NPCs. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know. Like this is not even to like glorify addiction or like whatever. This is just to like explain like why, because I've already seen a little bit about it like online in terms of like, oh yeah, narcissists tend to have like, let's say, like addictive personalities and whatnot. And I didn't prepare for anything like that. I didn't watch anything, even though I know like that is like out there. So I guess like I just wanted to talk from like my whole point of view, because substances have always been my thing, or have always been the thing that I've shown more dedication towards, like if not counting my girlfriend, literally just, substances. So yeah, there's a reflection right there in terms of why I would think, yeah, yes, that narcissists do have like, or tend to have like addictive personalities, or why I might, let's just say, have an addictive personality. And a little bit about like why I'm in, kind of like what I said, Enneagram 7, but I can make that as a whole like separate video. I'm not sure what more like new stuff I could add to that, other than the whole like, oh yeah, kind of like what I already mentioned earlier. I don't buy this whole like, oh my gosh, you can't be this MBTI type and that like Enneagram type. But yeah, I guess yeah, that's it. That's it for now.